we're chasing this thing that none of us can really put into words, and we call it DIIV, but it's like a feeling, you know, and that's what we're chasing the whole time.
Hello, I'm Ben Homewood, and you're watching Enemy in Conversation with DIIV. We've got Cole and Colin here. How are you two?
Good.
Doing good, yeah.
Good now.
I think last time I saw you here, you just got married.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations for that.
Thank you.
And you've had a kid since then.
Yep.
Congratulations for that too.
Thank you.
And now you've written an album about how mankind are all frogs waiting to be boiled to death.
Mm-hmm.
So, Frog and Boiling Water. Can you kind of outline why you chose that title? Why it appealed to you as a title for the record?
I really wanted to call the album that at a certain point, but I think it kind of came from just, we had been approaching the songs like so individually, and we hadn't really considered them like as a whole piece. And then kind of once we did it, like going through the themes, that was one that really stuck out. But it's like, I don't know if that's gonna work, you know? What if they say no? I was really scared to.
Is
Yeah,
they the band?
They the
yeah,
band,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Cole was nervous that we wouldn't like it, partially because making the record was really difficult. There were a lot of disagreements, but that when actually you came forward, we were all like, sick, that sounds
Yeah, that was like my
great.
most scared, because it also didn't, it just like, you know, it's like you know, like imagine if like you're your wife and you're pregnant and you go through the pregnancy and it's so crazy and it's this whole thing and she's sick and this and that, and then the baby's born and you're like, let's name the baby Frog in Boiling Water.
Yeah.
You know, like thinking about how somebody's reaction to that would be was scary, but it was also scary because I didn't want it to be anything else besides that, and was worried about like what the plan B was, because there was no plan B.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was called that in my mind for like a month before I talked to the band, and then they were like, that's awesome.
For me, it just like, you know, reminds me of something that like Sonic Youth would have done, where it's like this like idea that is borderline cliche, but no one's ever used it, and they were so good at that. And so when you said, I was like, fuck yeah, like
Yeah, I mean, they have an album called Bad Moon Rising.
Yeah.
It's like,
and
or like you were talking about the replacements earlier, their record's called Let It Be.
yeah.
It's like so
Yeah.
cool.
I mean, for me, it's like the album is so dense, musically and like thematically, that like it just feels like very apropos. Like it's just a fitting image, even aside from it being like kind of like the commentary being like politically relevant and in step with the lyrics and everything. It's just like the image just feels like the album to me. So it worked kind of. It worked abstractly, artistically, and like.
It's kind of the thesis, you know?
Yeah, it did a good job of kind of like cohering all the ideas.
You mentioned the difficult creative process. I've been reading stuff about you all being broke and bruised and like relationships strained to their snapping point.
Mm-hmm.
So can you give some context to that? What exactly happened? Because you were going to record Alter Deceiver, and then the pandemic hit and you were all obviously separated because of lockdowns. And then, what happened from there?
Well, it's in particular funny to answer this question with you, because last time we did an interview with you, I remember it being so positive and like we're doing the best we've ever done. And it was true at the time. It felt like this like rebirth for the band, and there was so much optimism and hope. And with this one, I think we went into it with these like really big ambitions to try to make like a different kind of album for us, and like kind of really stretch ourselves and push ourselves to make something like new. And I think we just did not anticipate that it would be a really, really big challenge to like agree with those kind of like new guidelines, or that kind of exploded approach to the band. And we were still, I think, in a certain way in that kind of mode of like, oh, everything's like good, you know? And then that's when things really sneak up.
Yeah.
You're not expecting it, and then you just resentments build, and
Your relationships take work and some vigilance. But yeah, we left making Deceiver like, let's do that again. And maybe we would have, but yeah, being in band's tough, I
Yeah.
think a lot of people just, the music just shows up on their phone and they're like, cool, and listen or whatever, but there's not a ton of transparency about like all that goes into making the sausage. There's so many decisions and so much money and time and all this stuff. It's daunting, and you kind of just, you make it just like on spec of like, I hope people like this, and you kind of put all your eggs in that basket. And they're like, I believe in it, and we all believed in it.
So did you have a label, because you finished with Captured Tracks?
Yeah, we had no label.
No label, so that's even more kind of uncertainty.
Yeah, we were kind of paying out of our pocket more or less to make the record. So it felt our investment was like pretty big, and we, because the record took so long to make, we weren't touring for a year.
Yeah.
It was just like, it created a more like fraught environment where it's like the band is like very much our livelihood, and we're all investing so much in this thing, and then it's like our friendships and our creative thing, and they all become intertwined, and so it becomes really difficult to like make decisions because there's so much wrapped up in every single decision you make. Like maybe the one decision you make could be the one that the record's a flop and we all go broke and that's it.
It feels like that in the moment.
It really feels like that in the moment.
Where like you'll be having this disagreement about something that like in hindsight is like so minor, but in the moment it feels like the most important decision.
Could you give a small example of what you mean, maybe? Or is it not?
Got a lot of those.
Yeah, so many things. Like, I mean, even like we demoed everything so hard. And a big thing too is that like Cole and I wrote Deceiver. And this time, like we all wrote, and especially Ben had like a much more involved like role songwriting. And so like everything, I don't know, when you have two people, there's something about that, and I think there's a reason why there's like a lot of like songwriting duos throughout history. Something like more straightforward about that dynamic. When you add like a third and then fourth person, it becomes tricky like really fast. And so we had all these demos where we were like figuring things out, and then like, for an example, like there would be like a timing of a guitar part that like you would never, like a layperson would not even be able to tell the difference between the two, and like Cole and I would just be like, I will kill you, Not actually, but like it felt like that in the moment of this kind of, and then it's always like, it's like with relationships too, where like you're arguing about something in particular, but if you took a step back, it's like, that's not really what we're
you're
talking
like arguing about like everything about, it was so, like I was saying, so loaded with interpersonal relationship and like power dynamics and financial stuff, and it's like it's just a lot.
So how did you find someone to put it out? Tell me about how you signed to Fantasy. But was it done, and then were you kind of shopping around with the record or not?
Yeah, the record was done, or
it was close to done. That was the initial intention, was in financing it ourselves, was that we want to just make a record and have like it be finished. So a label can say like yes or no. There isn't like a back and forth about like, oh, the track list should be this or, whatever. So yeah, we were shopping around a mostly finished album.
It was like mostly finished. Okay. And then they'd be like, cool, let's hear the finished one. And we're like, you don't understand. Like it's like we're so close to the finish line, but there was still like mixing and all these big, big decisions that had to be made to get, together as a group. So we were like further from the finish line than probably it seemed.
But Matt from Fantasy, we met with him, and sometimes you just, especially with like industry people, sometimes you have a conversation where you're just like, you understand. They say like and not even in like a charm forward way, they just say the right string of words where you're just like, that's the home for the album, And everything since then has been sick. It feels like everyone really like reinforces that kind of understanding that he laid out.
And how are you feeling about the finished product? Like listening to the record, it's amazing work, I think. But how do you both feel about it now? It's kind of done and it's coming out.
It's like hard to hear it with. I feel like I was only able to hear it with fresh ears for the first time when we listened to the, like, you know, when you get a vinyl press, they send you the thing to check if there's any like fuck ups on it.
Yeah.
Listening to that was like the first time I heard it with like completely fresh ears, and I was like, whoa, that's so like. The arrangements are really cool, or like it's so dense or something, but it was hard to hear it for what it was for a while. But yeah, I mean, I'm really proud of us. We did make a good record.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an amazing album. I like it's so nice to be like a fan of the band you're in. And it, you know, because I feel like most people are probably, or like convince themselves they are, but I really like the music we make. And this one just feels like so hard fought or hard won or whatever. And for a while it was painful to listen to it because there's so much baggage that like no one will ever know really, other than like our partners and a few other people who are close to us, or like Chris, who produced the record, like they understand. But for the most part, it's like, it's too much to even explain. And that's how it is with like stuff that's like really difficult to think about, where you like cringe or wince. It's when it's just like overwhelming. You can't like distill it into like one argument or something like that. But now that we're having distance, and especially like having people react to it and come up to us and like ask us like really thoughtful questions, and really like, you can sense that they're like connecting to the music. That's like really gratifying. And
Yeah, it's like not ours anymore.
yeah.
And do you think that most bands have those kind of issues that you were just talking about going on that people don't know about? You know, because surely everyone must have
I don't know, probably.
stuff going on that they don't talk about, you know.
I think we're just like a group of like 4 really very different people from each other. And I think some groups of people tend to like grow together into, you know, they're like, they become more agreeable to each other, or their personalities kind of coalesce a little bit more. And like, we've become like very good at like, I don't know, just not doing that. I wonder what other bands like Internal Dynamics are like. They're probably fucked up too.
Yeah, I'm sure they're fucked up in different ways.
Yeah.
I think we have like, and this is not to say that other bands don't have high standards for themselves, but we really, really do. And we're like really hard on each other, and like we're very brutal about the kind of idea of like the best idea wins. And like when you have that kind of approach, it can get like intense, especially when your taste is different, you know? So it feels like, I don't know, at least with bands that we're friends with and stuff, I rarely have a conversation with someone where I'm like, you get it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that's
you
true.
guys are
We do have a
struggling.
lot of friends who are musicians. They don't seem to have the same things.
But every now and then you do talk to someone. I know a band that I won't mention. It would be fun to mention.
Tell me later.
But I know for a fact that 2 of the guys in the band like hate each other, you know? But they have a really like good working relationship, and it works, and like you would never know. Being in a band is so hard, and being in a band for like over a decade is really like some crazy milestone in and of itself, and we're like still going, and we still want to go for much longer, and that's just hard, you know? And so kind of like coming to terms with the difficulty of a relationship, especially when it's like family or something, where it's like we just are that to each other now, the 4 of us, and it's worth struggling for, you know? So yeah, obviously the goal is to have a healthy dynamic, which I think we have like arrived at now much more so. I think we just had to suck it up and talk, which can be hard, you know?
Well, on that subject, I wrote down some lyrics I wanted to ask you about, because it's the title track. You say, "My livelihood is rotting in your hand, man," and unreflected lines include, "Our lives are done, and the parasites are in control." And then I don't know. It's just some dark. Like there aren't many lyrics on the record, are there? The lines are quite sparse.
Mm-hmm.
The words that are there are really kind of bang.
Yeah, those ones are pretty targeted. I mean, Bailey was talking a bunch about, you know, the frog in the boiling water idea, where like, you know, somebody's turning up the heat, you know, and like we didn't want to make a political record that was rooted in kind of like dumb like non-solutions, like vote for this team or, you know, whatever kind of thing. And so I think it was like important to implicate like, you know, that it's like people in power who are like creating this dystopia. You know, it isn't just like happening by itself. So I think those were some lines that seemed to talk about that, yeah.
And I was watching your old Fader film that you did.
Oh yeah.
Like I know it's you might not like me reading stuff back at you that you said, but like I wanted to talk to you about how hard it is being in DIIV, because I feel like I kind of had an idea that it was particularly challenging being in this band, having covered the kind of trajectory you've been on. But like there are lines from each member. Like Bailey was saying, being in a band chips away at your sanity. Cole said that touring was like torture, literally, but now you like it. And Ben said he often you wonder why you're doing it. And you said just the words that I wrote were miserable and backbreaking, like kind of shitty vans and like driving all day and stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is it all worth all that? Because I don't know, you're clearly angry, sad, feeling negative about things in some of the lyrics on the record, and then the actual reality of doing what you do is hard too. But is it worth the hardship?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, it's like literally what we do.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know how to
like,
do anything else, you know, like asking somebody who like, you know, puts the bolts on this thing. It's like, wouldn't you rather be taking the bolts off? You know, like, why only know how to put them on, you know what I mean? Yeah. We committed like pretty hard to this lifestyle, and, you know, like we don't have like education or any of the things that we would need to, or training or, you know, anything else. So it's like we're in it for better or worse, you know?
The grass is always greener too. I'm more like it's, you know, and maybe that day when we talked, we were all feeling negative. Maybe the next day,
but it's
we're
sorry
like,
to interrupt, but it's like, it's not, you don't sound negative. You just sound like you're being honest.
Matter of fact, there are realities about it for sure. But like, I kind of more so shudder to think about my life without it.
Yeah.
That feels worse to think about, especially because it won't, you know, it won't last forever. There'll be a certain point where we don't do this anymore, like with everything. And so, you know, you just enjoy and make the most. I feel like Bailey was actually talking earlier about like he read something and it changed his perspective about like how to navigate being an artist and how to like think of it not just in terms of, I'm going to butcher this right now, but I'll do my best, but think of it not just in terms of like, oh, I make a piece of art, but like his life is art, and not in a pretentious sense, just in a like what we're saying, like it is what we do. It's who we are. So the difficulties or whatever of it, it's part of the reality, but it's like, you know, everything has its downsides.
Yeah, I don't think it's like unique to us. I think, you know, the water is boiling, you know what I mean? The music industry is fucked. And it's just the nature of, you know, and it's not just this industry, it's like working, being a worker, being a music worker, all this stuff. There's like, it's not a good time for that. You know, the money is floated to the top and will stay there. Yeah.
Does that put you off at all? Or again, is the answer no option but to carry on? Because well, you're doing some stuff around trying to make that better.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's just, it's not good.
And one thing that struck me about, you know, just kind of looking back on, stuff we've done before and just the DIIV story in general is how much change there's been since Cole started it. personal change. You know, the lineup's changed a couple of times. You've moved to a different city now. It's just amazing to have lasted and been through everything that you've been through. That's well documented as well. How do you think DIIV has changed you over those years since you started it?
I don't know. I think just, I like that the records have come out in these kind of like intervals because they really mark these like chapters. I think Bailey was talking about that one time about like people rarely have like a chapter marker in their life. And so it's cool to be able to look back and be like, man, like, you know, this is what was happening then, and then the next chapter, and there's a lot of change, and you know, people change, and as you get older, and you sometimes see bands kind of like trying to like resist change musically or in their you know, persona or whatever it is, and it just feels dishonest. And I really like how the band has kind of like, you know, it's like the Harry Potter movies or whatever, you know, it like grows up with you or something like that. Because yeah, I mean, it's just we go through all this stuff in life that we might have gone through otherwise, but we can talk about it or we're forced to talk about it on records or whatever. I don't know, that's such a big question, I don't even know what to say, just besides just ramble.
The other half, like the reverse of that question, is what I was thinking about. Do you guys define what the band does, or does the band define what you do? It feels like DIIV is a thing that in and of itself that is, yeah, malleable and resistant, and
it's definitely that. I think like
maybe it's easier to talk about how DIIV is different than when it started.
We just have to like define it. You know, it's like catching something in the air. You know, like it's like we don't necessarily know what it is, but we know what it isn't. You know, and so we kind of are defining it through this like negative space and figuring out what the band is and talking about what the band is. So in some ways, it feels like we're getting this like large, you know, like it's telling us what to do. But it really is just us, you know? It's just like we're chasing this thing that none of us can really put into words, and we call it DIIV, but it's like a feeling, you know? And that's what we're chasing the whole time.
There's this like there's a funny moment when you're writing a song where like you come up with the drum beat, come up with the bass line, guitar part, and then it feels like you could do anything over it. You know, it's like, oh man, what could this song be? But inevitably there's, especially with DIIV, it feels like there's actually some sort of like end point that idea has if it's going to successfully be on an album. And you just have to fight to like find it. And it's always, I always forget that it's going to happen. Because we'll come up with like a demo or something, and it's like, what should this song be like? Maybe it could be like this, maybe it could be like that. And we're like talking as though there's like a lot of possibility, but actually there's something else that's like guiding us around. And we just have to like, yeah, grab it out of the air, like Cole's saying.
I think that's a good time to end.
Cool.
I think we have to end also.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
I just coughed like right in his ear. I was trying to.
Oh, that was your ear. Oh.
Yeah, I was trying to be like respectful, and then I was like, oh fuck, the mic.
You should leave that in.